there, thank you for tuning in again to our Smack channel. We really hope you enjoy this video. If so, please leave some love or share your thoughts below in the comment section. Thank you so much, and now let's get started. Enjoy the show.
Hi, I'm Emma Banks. I have the privilege of working for Hilton, and this is my story on Smack.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode right here on the Smack Hospitality Podcast. This episode features Emma Banks, the Vice President, F&B Strategy and Development for Europe, Middle East and Africa at Hilton Hotels and Resorts. Emma and I had a great chat at the Future Hospitality Summit in Abu Dhabi by Bench Events, and we talked about all things F&B, the myth of the breakfast buffet, and why sustainability is key in developing hotels and F&B concepts. Enjoy the show. All right. Emma, welcome to Smack. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking some time out of your calendar. The Future Hospitality Summit is around the corner. Started yesterday already. It's great to see you. When I did some research, and I'll start with a very easy question, and the people listening at home will be surprised that I did some research in the first place, but for this occasion I did. And I wanted to ask first and foremost about before we touch on your career, about the whole F&B scene, and obviously any Google result that comes up with your name is usually surrounded by you're probably one of the most influential people in the F&B world. Certainly, I know. Listen, that's that's what I read. So tell me, I mean, in your own perception, how's F&B doing? Just straight up. How do we feel about F&B? Is it on the rise? Is it as important as ever? Has it gotten more important the past couple of years? Because I asked this for a very deliberate question, because when I walked into the event yesterday, it felt like F&B was much more on the agenda than perhaps it previously has been the past couple of years. And I guess this is not just for this event, but in general. Am I correct in assuming that? Has it gotten more on the agenda, if we want to put it that way?
Yeah, well, the short answer is yes, but I'll quantify that a little bit. So, is F&B on the rise? Well, first of all, I like to call it F&D, and the reason I like to call it F&D is myself and my team, we firmly believe in speaking the language of the listener, and the consumer, the customer, the guest would refer to food and drink.
Yeah.
F&B is an industry term, and it's very much if you Google, if you Google food and beverage, you tend to get industrial, manufacturing, off-trade businesses, whereas if you Google food and drink, you tend to get restaurants and bars.
Yeah.
We're probably a lone voice in this at the moment, but I always refer to it as food and drink. It is. You're absolutely right. Good observation. We're at the Hospitality Summit here in Abu Dhabi, as you mentioned, and in the time that I've been working, I transitioned sort of 10 years ago from independent restaurants and bar sector into hospitality, running food and drink, restaurants and bars. Sort of 5 years with Jumeirah, and now just come up to 5 years with Hilton Hotels and Resorts. And in that time, there were hotel groups more in the luxury and lifestyle space that was still really valuing the experience of food and drink, restaurants and bars as a halo effect. You know, people would stay, visit those resorts because of the great restaurants and bars, as well as them be beautiful resorts with great other amenities and public spaces, as well as being a great property. And there was, a real feeling that maybe some hotel groups or owners would always, breakfast is absolutely integral to a great stay. Breakfast has always been a massive focus for the hospitality business, but because of rising costs, food inflation, energy inflation, labour inflation, challenges around, it's quite difficult to run restaurants and bars well and profitably. So kind of the industry started to fall out of love with it a bit. But trends have changed, and the customer is very much around, as we know, experiences, memories, and wanting to feel that sense of place and connect with where they go. And how do you do that? Well, first of all, we know, and especially in a post-COVID era, when we couldn't spend time with our friends and family in restaurants and bars, people want to connect in restaurants and bars. People want to enjoy themselves, and people are valuing that. And when they visit hotels and properties around the world, taste tourism is on the rise. People want to culturally connect or feel that sense of place, and food and local gastronomy and cuisine and local ingredients. And it doesn't have to be, Levantine food because you're in the Middle East, but just, you could be eating Italian food, but you could be eating tomatoes that have been grown in the region, or micro herbs that have been grown in a local farm near the hotel. It's just that sense of place, that connection. Plus popular culture. Chefs are the new pop heroes.
Stars.
Yeah, everybody. I mean, you just look at TV channels, food and drink shows, competitions, the rise of social media, FOMO. Everybody's, it's almost become like, are you enjoying your food? Well, I'm like photographing it, I mean, it's a balance. But so I think owners now realize that that's what ultimately their guests visiting their properties. And also you've got to sweat the asset. There's no point in having restaurants not trading till the guests come back from the beach or their business or visiting the tourist attractions in the local city they're staying in. You've also got to attract local residents in their own right, maybe visitors from other properties, tourists to the region. And having great restaurants and bars is a gateway to getting other footfall in your property, spending money, driving your overall total revenue, your TrevPAR, as we call it in the business. So, I think the halo effect of having great restaurants and bars, and, as myself and my team say, that F&D, your restaurants and bars, can bring a different guest as a new customer to the enterprise brand, rather than somebody who is traditionally engaging with your property for booking a room. So you're absolutely right. For all those reasons, it drives footfall, it gives the halo effect, it gives authentic content on social media. Guests are very much engaged with it. People are dreaming when they're booking, looking at the restaurants and bars. Taste tourism's on the rise, but ultimately it can also bring incremental revenue into your property. And if you've got great restaurants and bars, it can also drive your ADR, average daily rate. People will pay a premium to stay in your property because of that.
And enjoy the F&D outlets. Does that how do we manage expectations when we look at that? Because I feel everything that you've just said obviously brings a certain amount of new expectations to the F&B world that maybe previously existed, but probably more so in the in the Michelin star places. Now, am I correct in assuming that the expectations from an F&B outlet are, all of a sudden, probably even in a per se lower category restaurant or bar, you know what I mean, are also, there's going to be some form of expectation.
Yeah, I think it's very much about categories and swim lanes. So where you've got focus service properties, they have sort of brand standards, and the guests knows and comes to expect what they want, and it has to be best in class for that type of category of property. So at Hampton, we're famous for the Hamptonality experience, but we're super famous for that brilliant breakfast waffle, and that's what guests expect, and that needs to be delivered to a great standard. Nobody is going to go and expect a Michelin star restaurant to be open in that property, Sure. So in our full service properties, our Hiltons, for example, or Curios, sometimes we have very good quality full service restaurant experiences, but then sometimes we will have award-winning restaurants in there, such as our Hilton Costa Bella resort in Croatia, for example. We have a Michelin star. We actually have the youngest Michelin star restaurant there at our restaurant and bar. there. So it's very much Nebo Restaurant and Bar. Sorry, the name just evaded me then. But I think, and then as you go into the luxury and lifestyle properties, that's where people expect to see, you know, the Michelin, the Gourmet, World's 50 Best. And those awards, as we say, they can garner that halo effect and people wanting to visit there. But, you know, and that's where you get a combination of the hotel group created and curated restaurants and bars and, you know, concepts created in-house by the teams, and they can be fantastic. Or that's where we can also outsource with third-party chefs, partners and brands.
Sure.
Yeah.
We have to, I can't have you on the show and not talk about the elephant in the room when I think about F&B.
What?
Breakfast buffet.
Oh, right, yes.
Walk me through the breakfast buffet, you know, concept and standard of the 2020s. Is it still, because I've heard, you know, you can ask 3 different people and you'll probably get 3 different stories, from hoteliers to people working in the restaurant to you know, executives like yourselves. On the one hand side, you hear that it is forever going to be what the guest wants. The guest loves to walk in, have the choice, you know, from 5 different cereals, different types of milk, some cold cuts, some fruits, and all the rest of it. And then at the same time, you also have potentially the outlet or the hotel where there's a question of profitability there that, you know, might not be as great for a breakfast buffet as it might be. And we're not going to get into the dirty details of the numbers, but how do you balance that myth of breakfast buffet? Because, and I'll take myself as an example, I'm probably not the biggest breakfast guy on the planet, but when I do like the choice of walking into the room and having a buffet there and so on and so forth. What's your, and I'll ask for 2 opinions here, the professional Emma Banks opinion, and then you personally when you travel, how's your do you use the breakfast buffet? Do you enjoy it? Because I remember there was a time in COVID, and I think we can all remember this very, very vividly, when breakfast buffet, for obvious reasons, was not possible in some parts of the world. And you had to order at your table. And some people said, actually, I don't mind this. But then others said, please, for the love of God, bring back the buffet. Are we halfway in between?
Gracious, we could literally do a podcast on this, but I'll try and be as succinct as possible, which my team will giggle and go, really? Right, okay. We know as an industry that when people are booking to stay in a hotel, in the main, if they're booking a bed and breakfast experience, whether on business or leisure, people really, a great breakfast experience and the expected branded breakfast experience, you know, guests come to know what a Hilton breakfast is or what a Waldorf Astoria breakfast is, etc. People expect a great breakfast, and we know our statistics show that a 1-point improvement in our breakfast satisfaction scores drives a 0.6 change in overall.
That's crazy.
So it's that important to the guest.
Oh, wow. I
okay?
did not know that.
No, it's huge. It's huge, which is why hoteliers are so laser focused on delivering a great experience, because ultimately you've got to give the guests what they want, and it is what the guest wants.
Sure.
I come at breakfast from a lot of different stances. First of all, you said, you know, you talked about the COVID era.
Yeah. And
I was interviewed several times during COVID.
sure.
People were saying, the buffet's dead. You know, nobody's ever going to go back to a buffet. Yeah. And, you know, I'm fortunate that I work in a global hospitality company, Hilton. And, you know, I was talking, and we know that certain parts of Asia Pacific came out of the COVID faster.
Sure.
So I was speaking to my colleagues in Asia Pacific, and they didn't have that transitional sort of hybrid breakfast buffet that you touched on, you know, where there was some service at the table, there was some controlled social distancing at the buffet, etc., where you were served by a team member rather than helping yourself. So the team member had gloves. And certain countries where the buffet is really, really part of the culture and they enjoy dining that way, 3 meals a day, they went straight back into it. They didn't even have that transition. Yeah. So when I saw that, I was kind of like, culturally, they have like immediately moved back to the buffet. So it reinforced my belief was that we would return to the buffet. And I'll say why. And I will talk also about why I have this love-hate with the breakfast buffet as well from a personal perspective, which is what you wanted. Hilton has over 7,000 hotels globally, okay? And so do all the other big groups, and so do the independents. And if you have a hotel of, say, plus 200 rooms, there comes a point where, everybody wants breakfast at breakfast time, and we know there's peak periods. And also, it is the most effective way to give people a great breakfast experience at volume and give them the choice and give them that overall important experience. But also, I was saying to people when they were saying, people will move on, they won't want it anymore. I was like, okay, but our owners have invested in huge infrastructure. They've got these big spaces, they've got these breakfast layouts, these linear buffet layouts, and also they've got a kitchen with the infrastructure not capable of delivering 1,500. Take the Hilton London Metropole, 1,600 people at peak or something, an a la carte breakfast. So owners who have, had a tough time during COVID are not going to appreciate somebody like me coming along and saying, right, well, you're going to have to dig deeper and we're going to reposition. And by the way, you're going to have to rebuild your whole kitchen. They'd have been like, are you insane? Yeah. So, but also from a personal perspective, and this is where I have a professional love-hate with breakfast, because we'll touch probably on my sustainability stance and my team's sustainability stance and Hilton's travel with purpose ESG agenda. But we know that the breakfast buffet contributes a significant amount of food waste. And we are working very hard to deal with that. So there is actually a consumer pushback on the breakfast buffet from the fact, not in a post-COVID hygiene standards of being, I think those customers have moved on from like, oh, you touch the tongue, I'm not going to touch it. Obviously, it has driven better hygiene standards at the breakfast
all
buffet around the world globally, which I applaud and appreciate, because I think customers think about it a bit more now, whereas we might not have thought about it before, and how we dispense some of our yogurts and jams and things. It has driven a new standard, which I appreciate. But what it also has done is it's made us individually portion more, cook more a la carte, because it's made operators go away from that pilot high at 6 a.m. and at 11 a.m. bring it back in. It's kind of given that better experience for guests, more individual portioning, because that allows for hygiene. But also that has started to have the effect of reducing waste, because you're putting less out in more individual portions. So it reduces waste. But also hotels are, especially in the luxury and lifestyle, they're moving to a hybrid buffet again. They're having some assisted tables, people come around with sharing baskets, but then also you order a certain element a la carte. I think also we're now, in designing the breakfast buffet, we're moving away from this sort of long linear cafeteria format to more stations, which allows for more a la menu cooking, which reduces waste, but the guest still gets that great fresh experience and that treat of ordering what they want, their eggs done how they want. So, but I think the challenge we've got around breakfast is
more
working with, and we're just about to launch our green breakfast trial here in the UAE, which is a pilot program with NAMA, which is the UAE organization who's looking at the food waste and loss agenda for the UAE government. Winnow, who's our chosen food waste management AI technology platform, and United Nations Environment Programme. And we're looking at how we measure food waste at breakfast, get the data, really study the data, and our chefs start to work to reducing food waste based on not only production waste in the kitchen, but plate waste front of house, which is the plate waste in the buffet format is the big problem. There's always been production waste, whether it's a buffet restaurant or an a la carte restaurant. So professionally, we know that buffets are necessary. Guests want them. It's a very, very good way for hotels to deliver. But we also know that we now have to reduce food waste, and we can't just, people are like, oh, breakfast buffets, you all just need to move. We can't just move to a la carte. But we need, and there is a way, because we showed during our Green Ramadan trial, where we worked with our partners again, and in 3 countries, Qatar, UAE and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, in 3 selected properties, we had a buffet Ramadan iftar and suhoor experience, and we did this closed loop pilot where we looked at local sourcing, we looked at measuring our food waste, we looked at subtle nudges and interventions for guests around the United Nations recipe of change messaging. We looked at composting, we looked at food donations, we also looked at carbon labelling. And we, in 30 odd days, from baseline data in the first week of the Ramadan to the last week, we reduced food waste in that buffet format in those 3 hotels by 61%.
Crazy.
So it just goes to show that hotels in the future will be able to adopt a buffet strategy but reduce food waste, which I think will be what customers want. It'll be a win-win, ethically and fiscally, both for the owners and the customer.
Yeah. So while we're on the topic, let's talk about sustainability, because for better or worse, it's been around the industry for a while now, and I feel like sometimes we need to clarify exactly just how important it is for various reasons. Revenue, for starters, I think there is an element of revenue there. I think everybody can agree on that. It's not just nice to have for the customer anymore. I think there's more to it, and probably more so in F&B than just talking about single-use plastic, because I feel like that's kind of the elephant that's been dragged around the village a little bit, and to show and tell, oh, we're doing something. Okay, that's nice and great, and appreciate that, but there's more to sustainability than single-use plastic.
Oh gosh.
And especially in F&B. Tell me 2 things, Emma. Number 1, how close are we to being, and I guess it's a big question, but I'll throw it out there anyways. How close are we being being sustainable in the hospitality industry, or how far away are we? And I think there's an honest answer there, not just Hilton, but as an industry. I think there's a question there. And then secondly, specifically for the F&B industry, do you feel like the F&B part of hospitality is easier to become more sustainable? Is it easier for that part to become more sustainable, more complicated, or is it just as complicated as everywhere else in the industry?
Great question. Well, first of all, I think you're absolutely right. I'm now very, very much quoted on saying the future of hospitality is sustainability, because I tend to be invited to talk. I get given the privilege of being able to talk about our food waste initiatives, our local sourcing initiatives, sure, which very much integral to Hilton's Travel with Purpose ESG agenda. So Hilton, as a global operator, we are signed up to the Paris Agreement. We are committed with science-based targets to a net zero future. Yeah. At present, Hilton hasn't committed to an exact date. We've got targets, and we are working towards a net zero future. Yeah. Now, and in line with the UN SDG goals. But you're right, food and drink can play a huge part in that. We can work on sustainable sourcing, responsible sourcing, local sourcing, by looking at supporting the communities that we operate in by sourcing locally, giving guests what they want, local flavours and cuisine, and reducing carbon emissions through logistics and transportation. Local sourcing also allows for a reduction in food waste, because obviously it's sourced closer to the hotel, which means it's going to be fresher, which will last longer. But also through our reduction of food waste, because your listeners may know, but food waste contributes to 1/3 of global carbon emissions, and if it was a country, it'd be the 3rd biggest polluter in the world.
Sure.
Okay, so I think, yes, sustainability is really important. It's not a nice to have, as you said, because it's critical. We are at code red. Climate change is code red for humanity. Let's be clear. Yeah. And I'm also quoted on saying there is no time to waste. And I mean, there is no time to waste, but also this is no time to waste, as in food waste. So it's absolutely critical, because guests are looking for it. So even if you whatever your sustainability stance, your guests are looking for it. So, it's something that's going to drive the attraction of your property or your restaurant. But also we know that there's a real challenge on recruiting top talent, and there is a real battle to get top talent to work in your hotel, your restaurant, your bar. And we know that the younger generation and people joining the hospitality workforce are very engaged. And rightly so, because they're inheriting this situation. They are very much engaged. They want to work for companies that have got transparent, fact-based accountability around sustainability. Is it easier in food and drink? No. We can't just sort of like switch light. I know. God bless my engineering colleagues. They'll be like, it's not quite that easy. It's just switching light bulbs. But we've got to. You've got chefs who have worked for hundreds of years with, certain techniques, gastronomy. And now, but I'm so proud to say that I do think the chefs in my team are the true heroes of the story, because they're now learning. It's almost becoming a badge of honor in gastronomy. I'm so pleased to see it, led by some celebrity chefs that, they're using, we talked about root to shoot, nose to tail, but they're using every element of a root vegetable and showing different cooking techniques, hydrating, there's a real skill set now and admiration in vegan and vegetarian cooking, because it's harder to get the flavors and the texture and that umami profile. So there's this shift in gastronomy to I've heard some of our executive chefs talk about this paradigm shift, that when they've started to work on these pilots, this green Ramadan and most recently this green breakfast, there's this paradigm shift, not only in their mindset, but that of the team members. And then you start to find the whole hotel team gets engaged with it, which is great, because we start to look at measuring our food waste in the staff cafeterias. But once you get the hotel teams engaged with it, they start talking to the guests. Sure. So you start engaging the guests in it. So it's that self-fulfilling prophecy. It's that virtuous circle to get in, you drive the chefs, you drive the team members, they talk to the guests. But it's not easy. You're talking about new gastronomy techniques. It is, we had to work really hard over the last few years to move from our traditional, big conglomerate supply chain, imported, because we would buy volumes and volumes and volumes from traditional suppliers. And we had to work very hard to find niche local suppliers, because naturally we've got due diligence, we've got processes, we've got commercial responsibilities to our owner. So we were very fortunate. Our Hilton supply management team here in the UAE, for example, we started to work with an agri-tech company called Fresh on Table, who, in our first year in 2022, we committed here in the UAE to buy 350 tons of local produce. We actually bought 456. This year, in year 2, we're going to buy 700 tons. So the chefs came on a journey, and we were fortunate. There was sometimes my senior director of culinary, Sebastian, had to kind of have a conversation with the chef and say, listen, you were moaning about that product before when it was imported. So, calm down. And actually, I have to say, hats off to the local farmers here in the UAE. The quality of the produce through the agri-tech, the exploding agri-tech industry here is incredible. We're starting to source locally in Qatar, in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. In the UK, we're at 64% local produce. In the Netherlands, 64%. Our basket in Spain and Portugal is increasing. So I'm looking at increasing our local basket in line with the operators, the hotel teams, and our Hilton supply chain. So it's not easy. It's about changing attitudes, changing culture, changing ways of working. But I think once you explain why, we talk about the Simon Sinek, why, my team over the last couple of years, I'm really fortunate. My leadership team are hugely engaged around it. For them, it's a passion project. Sustainability is really important. A lot of them are mum and dads as well. They've got young families.
Sure. Makes a
people
difference.
People feel, as a human being, people feel an ethical responsibility about it. And I'm fortunate. I work in a big global operator, and the decisions we make have big volume impact, and we're able to drive a seismic industry change.
Thank you for those insights, Emma. There's something else I need to talk to you about, and that's obviously the whole your career, because it's been quite a remarkable one, if you don't mind me saying so.
Thank you.
So I did want to, and I read somewhere in an interview that you aspired to be a criminal pathologist at some point growing up. So I wonder, where did it all go wrong, Emma?
Oh dear. Well, I'm going to show my age here because I went to boarding.
32, right?
Yeah,
Am I correct?
absolutely.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
I went to boarding school, and watching television was a real privilege.
Yeah.
We were only allowed to watch certain TV shows and certain treats. And I used to watch this TV show. I think it was called Quincy. I don't know. I'm showing my age here. Anyway, he used to go on the scene of crimes, and he was the hero that led the police to find the murderer or whatever. Yeah. And I used to love all this gory detail. I thought it was really interesting. I was like, I want to be Quincy.
Yeah.
That soon got knocked out of me when I was about 16, and I was doing all the sciences, and I'm going to show my age again at what we called O levels in those days, GCSEs now. Yeah. And I was good at biology, but I was rubbish at physics, and chemistry was a struggle. I think I nearly blew the lab up, with a Bunsen burner. I enjoyed biology, and dissecting and all that, but that was the only science I was good at. And maths, I was much better at the arts. I excelled in English literature and language. So I realised, sadly, that I didn't have the grey matter for Quincy. And I went to university. I studied English and media studies, interestingly, did a combined. And then I went on the graduate milk round at the time, got a job in telecommunications, got a job in contract management resourcing. Neither of them resonated with me at all. And then I fell into hospitality. I'd always had restaurant and bar jobs all through my studies.
There's some starts there, because I also read that you were when you got into the industry, you were no foreigner to hospitality. You had been in multiple jobs. And I want to ask you this because, obviously, and we're not going to get into the whole discussion of the talent crisis or how big it is or where it's more apparent than in other parts of the world. But I do want to ask, if we look at the way that, that the world works now, and obviously, we need to make sure that we get talent into the industry for better or worse. And, I can firmly resemble to what you said in terms of how getting into hospitality would be, or is easier if you've worked in a bar, in a pub of some sort, and you've gotten the hang of how this business works. If you were to look at talents today, what's something that you would recommend to them? Is it the bar job that helps? Is it a certain interest in people? And I guess we keep saying this, that it's a people industry as an industry as a whole, and I think that goes sort of without saying, to the point where we live and work in hotels. But what's your advice for people that are thinking about potentially even specifically the F&B industry? Because it is still, I think the art of creating something from food and drinks is still pretty special.
It is. It's it's a real passion. I think most people are in food and drink restaurants and bars. That very few people kind of realize, I want to be a restaurant, I want to be a bar owner or a manager or an operator or a chef. I mean, chefs may be more so as a calling, but because people study, to become a chef. But, I always call myself a glorified waitress. I haven't got an I've not got a culinary cuisine. I've not got a master's or anything in hospitality. Yeah. I literally, started working as a waitress on the floor and, did cocktail bars, pubs, everything. I worked my way up, and then as I graduated from university, and I actually finally got into an organisation as a graduate manager. But I think a lot of people fall into it. People do it like me, summer jobs, or to earn income while studying, and much to the unhappiness of their parents, because Daisy was going to be a doctor, and Daisy ends up going, actually, I want to run a restaurant. And it's like, that's not but I think now food and drink, we go back to popular culture, is such a respected industry now. People value travel, people value taste tourism, people value we know people love going out to eat and drink, and we know that people now see these Michelin star chefs, and they really appreciate the industry. Sure. So I think the industry is not seen as just a serve. It's seen as a business. It's seen as a professional career. It's seen as an integral part of society, a provider of joy and nourishment and happiness. But also, people see it as a serious business and career. The industry does have a bit of PR to do, because it's known as being notoriously tough, long hours.
We're working on it.
And and we are working really hard on that through, proper training programs, work-life balance, mental health and wellness schemes, also looking at flexibility programs, awareness around it. I mean, even Hilton, we have a lot of flexible working patterns, but people necessarily don't know about them on the floor. So it's about awareness. But my advice would be, first of all, do you really, really love working with people? Do you want to talk to people all day and night? Do you want to, because you have to get on with your peers, you have to work well with them because it's a pressured environment sometimes when the property's busy or the restaurant or bar's busy. You have to be, you have to engage with your guests. Do you have an attitude that you want to make people happy, bring joy? We talk about Unreasonable Hospitality, the book by Will Gadira, and he talks about service being black and white and hospitality being colour. You need to bring colour to your day, to your guest day, to your team day. So my advice would be is, if that's you, hospitality would be a great business to get in. I went in restaurants and bars, and now as Chris Nassetta, our president and CEO, talks about the golden age of travel, and travel is so much more accessible for younger people than when I was starting out. Hospitality is a great business if you want to see the world. Somebody's going to pay you to do something you love and potentially travel the world by moving around properties. And if I was to have my career over again, I would have gone into hospitality earlier. I am seriously envious of some of my younger team members who are progressing through the ranks. I often talk about one young lady, I met her as an F&B manager in Seychelles. I was on holiday. She asked me to she took the opportunity, she had the gumption to say, I know you're on holiday, but will you have a coffee with me? I did. We talked about her career. I then moved her to a property in Dubai, a luxury property in Dubai. So she got that big city experience. She's now taken a promotion. She's moved to one of our properties in Japan, in Osaka. She's getting that Asia Pacific experience, that Japanese, and I'm like, wow. Yeah. She's not even 30 yet, what a journey. And I, so if you love working with people, you want to travel, you want to see the world, hospitality is a brilliant business for you. It also is a very commercial business. You will learn about a P&L, you will learn about making money, you will learn about the guests, you will learn about, we're a global business, so we work in different cultures. We say we are diverse by nature, inclusive by choice. You'll work with different cultures, you'll work all over but sadly, you'll work in places where there'll be geopolitical issues, there'll be national catastrophes, and you learn to work in those environments. And you need your team then, you need your safety and security team to look after you, you need to look after... We've got hotel team members who've done amazing things. They've carried buckets of water where we've had, fires on the edge of properties in Europe. We've had hotel members help other guests and their team members in earthquakes, It's an amazing business. Crazy. If you want a career full of colour, hospitality is for you.
Come join us. Join us. Yeah. Emma, listen, just like that, almost 40 minutes have passed. It has been an absolute breath of fresh air. We have a tradition here on Smack. At the very end, I usually ask 3 or 4 very short questions.
Oh, I'll be short.
with the request for a short answer.
Okay.
And these are some very, very easy ones. Your favorite hotel outside of the Hilton world?
Oh, my favourite hotel outside of the Hilton world. I probably, people are going to be like, what a name dropper. But I was very fortunate, as I said, I worked in Jumeirah, so I don't have the pay packet, but I was very fortunate to stay at the Burj Al Arab several times. And it is it's a mind-blowing experience. And once my room wasn't ready, and in true Burj Al Arab experience, they said the delay I was waiting having a cup of tea in the lobby. They said, this delay is unacceptable. The presidential suite is vacant, so we are going to put you in the presidential suite. And my mum and I had a weekend in the presidential suite.
What a great, beautiful. From your travels, Emma, a destination that particularly stuck with you?
I love the Seychelles, actually. My career, my time at Hilton has afforded me the opportunity to go to the Seychelles. I have to say, I've been, every time I've been to the Seychelles, I've actually been on leisure, not business, but of course I get to experience the properties, meet the teams, enjoy. I love it. It's really beautiful. It's that combination of tropical, but also you get that African Indian Ocean experience as well. So I love the Seychelles.
Very good. The best food you've ever had, do we include the UK here, or do we, for security reasons, exclude it?
I was born and raised in Asia, so the best food I've ever
Fair
had
enough.
is probably great laksa on the streets of Asia.
Very good. Emma, thank you for your time. It's been a breath of fresh air speaking to you. Great to have you on the show, and best of luck for the rest of the year with Hilton and the F&B world.
Thank you, Smack Team.
Thank you. That's it for this episode, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to share your thoughts on this episode and everything else that is going on at Smack with us by checking out our website at smack.media or connect with us on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Instagram. We'll see you next time.
It's me again. We hope you enjoyed the video, and there's more from where that came from. Check out our other content over here. And if you always want to stay up to date on all things Smack related, subscribe to our social media channels, which you'll find below. Thanks, and see you soon.